Welcome, everyone, to the Leadership in Quarters podcast, the interview series where leaders come to share their perspectives on different leadership topics. I'm Josh Selden, and today's guest is Erica Bonham. Erica Bonham is passionate about walking folks through the beautiful, messy process of turning wounds into wisdom so that we can all remember our true nature, that we are always and already enough, and we still have work to do. Her work bridges personal healing with collective transformation and invites us to remember that the world needs us here in our fullest expression. She is a nationally sought after speaker, licensed professional counselor, certified EMDR clinician, consultant, trainer, best selling author, and nervous system regulation coach. She's passionate about redefining leadership as a practice of presence, resilience, equity, and joy. So, welcome, Erica.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation.
I am too. And I think we'll give everybody a heads up that we are going to talk about leading with a fierce heart. And I don't think it gives away too much of what that means. So I'm really excited about diving in and talking through that with you.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
Great. All right. Let's start off. I think when people hear heart, they associate heart with niceness. And I want to really start this by differentiating what the difference between being a nice leader and being a heart led leader is who's actually effective in what they do.
Yeah. So I always differentiate like niceness and kindness. And kindness has honesty to
Mm.
it. And kindness is really about preserving the relationship and the reciprocity between leaders and their teams. And when I talk about performing, niceness is a performance.
Yeah.
And niceness, I think the biggest differentiation, and I think what hits hardest for people is actually when leaders are being nice, it's usually an act of self preservation. It's about their own anxieties, their own need to be seen as a good leader. I think, especially maybe for women, and not necessarily, but if we're painting with broad brush strokes, women tend to be more socialized to be nice and polite and soft, and they don't want to be too much or considered a bitch or whatever. And
Right.
so when I'm working with female leadership who are trying to find their way into a sense of empowerment while still maintaining relationships, that differentiation becomes really important. I think that's true for whatever gender you are. And niceness, it's fake and people can feel it. Even if they don't consciously feel it, there's an incongruence. Just coming out of the leader's mouth doesn't match what their body is maybe saying.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I feel like through life, nice is such a positive word, and we just associate all these good feelings with nice. But then once you get maybe into adulthood and especially into this professional world, you hear nice. And I think it's especially what you just said, where there's just that feeling, that kind of ugh feeling in it when you hear nice versus kindness. Because when I think kindness, I think empathy, I think understanding and respect. And I can be kind while also holding somebody accountable, while seeking for understanding, but also making sure that I'm effective in my role. I don't have to be this nice person putting on a mask because if I have to be not nice in this situation, it makes me uncomfortable. Kindness allows me to be a good person while doing what I need to do and kind of showing understanding.
Yeah, I think kindness is hard. It's
Yeah.
harder and it takes courage because it does require honesty. And I think people really crave direct feedback or honest feedback and the ability to be coached and grow. And that takes, again, courage and honesty and the ability to language feedback in a way that is about behavior and what is specifically happening rather than about personal attacks or whatever. But kindness is harder. It requires courage and honesty. And I think that's hard. I think collectively we are socialized not to do that, to just like pet the kitty and don't stir the pot and oh, great job. And this
This
sort of
cheerleader. Yeah.
fluffy feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where people get mixed up because they think feedback is this negative situation where I'm either going to walk into this room as the person giving feedback or getting feedback, and then somebody's going to walk out feeling bad. And it doesn't have to happen, especially if you lead and approach things with kindness, with understanding, with mutual respect. I can still give feedback. I can still build capability and grow a person without making them feel like they just got run over by a bus. But I feel like
Exactly.
people don't understand that. And then they gravitate towards nice because they're like, I don't want to make this person feel bad because maybe one time I was in that situation and my leader made me feel bad. And now I've completely rewritten the script of my leadership style to be nice instead of being what our person needs, but also being an effective leader that holds people accountable or gives feedback and grows and coaches people.
Yeah. It's difficult. It requires practice.
It does. It's a
Yeah.
muscle. Everybody thinks, hey, I'm going to have it like this or I'm born with it, but it's a muscle that you build over time.
Yeah. And I think even if you're saying things in a way that is congruent and is relational, people, I've done a lot of work on this, but I am a shame first person. If I
Right.
hear feedback, I immediately go to, oh, I'm the worst. I'm not enough. I filter things through the lens of that so easily.
Mm.
And so I think there is an ask here, even if you are being led or if you're being coached, to try to separate what people are saying, like who you are, from the feedback that they're trying to offer you. And
Mm.
this is true in personal relationships too. If somebody's actually taking the risk to give you feedback, that's a gift, really.
Right.
Like they're trusting you with that information. If they don't think that conversation is going to go well, they're going to smile and nod and back away slowly. So the feedback is actually, I trust you. I want to maintain this relationship. I want to help you improve how you can show up in this relationship, whether it's an employee relationship or a personal relationship or whatever. That feedback, if you can look at it as a gift, and that requires you to separate who you are,
Mm.
where your areas of growth might be.
And there's a book called The Four Agreements, and it makes me
Yeah.
think of this when you talk that because if we go around and we make assumptions and we take things personally, it's very easy for us to have those feedback sessions be very negative. But if we do view it as a gift and we separate that, taking it personally side and understand that they're doing it for my own growth and they're putting themselves out on a limb, like you said, then it really shifts the perception of the situation.
And on the flip side of that, leaders, I think what I'm seeing a lot, I have lots of teachers in my life, I have lots of community mental health workers in my life, and it is so hard. In my mind, those systems were built on people's trauma responses of over responsibility and people pleasing and saying yes to things all the time. And teachers and community mental health workers and nurses,
Yeah.
they are so burnt out because they're just being asked to do all of this stuff without really the resources and the time to be able to actually do that effectively. And a lot of principals, a lot of people in leadership positions are doubling down on this old style of leadership that's like productivity, bottom lines first. Like it's this replaceable labor thing.
Yep.
And I know they're in systems too. They're in systems that are bigger than they are as well. But I think leaders don't understand how far it goes to just name how hard things are sometimes, or how tense things can be, and how collectively I think people are just feeling so much anxiety in this
Hmm.
moment. And just to name, hey, I'm here with you. I don't have all the answers, but I'm just naming that things feel hard.
Yeah, it's easy for people to just pretend like everything's rainbows and sunshine. But one easy step is admitting that, yeah, the situation sucks and here's how we can try to get through it together. But it does lead me to something else that I wanted to ask. And I think it's a perfect lead in. So we talk about people being burnt out, we talk about people being overworked, we focus on productivity, and we're in these situations both. I think some that are self-inflicted when we try to overdo the nice side and we don't do the kind side, and we're creating all this extra stress on ourselves because we're pretending to be somebody we're not, right? And pretending to be somebody's exhausting. And then we have all these external stressors that are on us. We're understaffed because of productivity, or we're burnt out, or we're doing all these things. And so our nervous system is in this constant state of chaos and panic. But as leaders, we need to perform calm for our teams because if we aren't calm, then how the heck are we going to expect them to be calm and get their stuff done? So, how do people approach this when internally, nervous system wise, we are running around screaming, but outside we're like this, where we have that calm, we have that confidence, we have that I'm here for you to set the direction. And if you have any questions, I'm a safe, calm place to get those answers.
I'm holding a couple different truths with this answer, and
Sure.
one of them is my therapist hat. I think a lot of us, I would say most of us, have some work to do.
Yes.
Most of us, it's just hard to be a human. So even if you had a relatively good family of origin, we're all being raised by unhealed, imperfect humans, and we're all also swimming in the soup of the society that we live in as well. And so I think if you feel like your nervous system is dysregulated, one, you're a human being. And so there's a lot of stuff happening in the world, and you're not a robot.
Right.
Like, we're supposed to be maybe a little bit impacted by the things that are happening here. And we want to be that grounded presence. We want to be not just performing calm, but actually having that congruence, that regulated ish,
Mm.
regulated enough nervous system. And I almost think about capacity, like growing our capacity. And so, what I've learned from the coaches that I work with and what I try to teach people is, how do you, one, you might have to do some shadow work, you might have to do some stuff, there might be some old traumas, old grief, old wounding, old negative beliefs, old patterning of protection around your nervous system
Mm.
that maybe needs a little bit of a deeper work
Yep.
and deeper look. So that's my sort of therapist hat. And then the other part is just like practicing some somatic nervous system regulation practices. This can't happen in the cognitive brain. You can't just neurotically repeat, I'm going to be calm, I'm going to be calm, I'm going to be calm to yourself and expect your nervous system to catch up with that. It doesn't really work like that.
No.
Our vagus nerve connects our brainstem to our gut. And when you're just trying to think and choose from a cognitive place, people can really feel that. People can feel if you're talking at them through a head bubble or through just your cognitive mind. And I think I sent you my nervous system regulation toolkit, looking at some things that are a little bit deeper, that are a little bit more body based, and practicing those regularly. Just a simple thing is just to notice your lower belly and imagine being in an anchored place in that lower belly. And then maybe imagining that lower belly connected to your heart. Maybe imagining like an energetic bubble around you, like you are actually differentiated from your team, from other people, because it almost seems paradoxical, but real connection actually starts with a healthy degree of separation, a healthy degree of differentiation. And if you can be in your own energy and grounded in your own body, you're going to be able to show up not just performing, but people are going to be able to feel your congruence, even if you don't have all of the answers.
And so many people don't realize that people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and especially around the feeling side. And everybody thinks if I can tell them a good story, I'm good and they'll be fine. But they can feel when things are off. They can feel when energy is off. They can feel, like we said, they can feel the niceness. There's just these unspoken feelings and energy that we have that, you can sometimes cut through it with a knife in the room. And so people don't realize that when they're not doing everything that you just said, when they're not using those somatic tools, that they are creating these environments, whether they know it or not, that does put people on edge. And I think, like you said, there are a lot of ways ahead of time that we can go and we can prepare ourselves and start building that muscle. Is there any kind of trigger in the moment that you've seen or that people are used to where I am calm, I've prepared myself to be calm, but I was just thrown a huge curveball and I'm gone again and my nervous system's
Yeah.
going haywire and I'm having issues sticking to, I'd say, my normal tools, my current tools to keep this calm in front of my team.
Yeah, you're human. And so you're going to get thrown for a loop. And I would say, really, the preventative medicine is if you're only trying to practice nervous system regulation when you're stressed,
Yeah.
it's like Michael Jordan practicing basketball only in the game. And I'm probably aging myself. Maybe I should have
I know Michael
a
Jordan too. It's
newer
okay.
basketball player. But so
Yeah.
you're practicing visualizing yourself, having worst case scenario, and go through it. Let your body feel it. Go toward that fear. If you're triggered in the moment, I honestly think naming it honest, boy, John, that really threw me for a loop here. Let's all just take a minute. I need to take a minute and ground myself and just anchor in. And I think you can set this up as a culture as well. Hey, my intention is to show up here as the grounded presence, to do my own work, to show up with integrity, to show up authentically. And if you set that up as a culture, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to perform all the time. I think there's real power in being able to say, boy, I'm just really feeling the anxiety in the room. I'm feeling the tension in the room. I'm feeling the pressure. And I'm wondering, we have our individual nervous systems, but
Mhm.
we also have collective nervous systems. And generally speaking, we have a phrase in EMDR therapy. It's like the strongest nervous system in the room wins. So if you have somebody coming in and they're angry and they're just like taking up all of the emotional energy, that is contagious.
Yep.
But if the leader actually has the capacity to co-regulate the room, whew, that is potent. And so it takes practice, but I think if you can name it in the moment, there's real power in that.
That makes a lot of sense because it's pretty much, I feel like, normalizing some vulnerability. And I feel like
Yeah.
leaders, a lot of times in that room, think, regardless of what comes my way, I need to be this rock, I need to be this anchor, and I can't let this throw me off, or else everybody's going to see I was thrown off and then they're going to lose confidence in me. But
Right.
I feel like there's such a change in mindset these days where people aren't always going to look at this perfect person because that's the world we live in. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere we see perfection. We don't see these real life things happening. And so when these real humans that work for us see that we are also a real human, number one, it builds this connection to say, hey, they're like me. They're not this perfect person on some pedestal that I'm never going to get to. And it just creates this human bond that I feel like we all look for. And it
Right.
helps them understand, okay, I'm struggling. I may not be as hard on myself that I'm struggling because look, they are too. And they need a moment in this room. And the next time that I'm in that situation, I'm going to take a moment and it just builds over time. Just the same way, like you said, the emotion
Yeah,
contagion happens, the positive side of that happens as well.
exactly. And who wants perfection? Ugh.
Yeah.
Like
Boring.
who likes to be around somebody that's perfect? It's awful.
It is.
And there's no trust, there's no real respect. Some leaders might rule by fear. Again, what I call old paradigm leadership styles of dominance, ultimate hierarchy. I'm not saying that we should get rid of hierarchy completely. We need some hierarchy, but
Yeah.
that dominance, power over style, extraction. I'm just going to extract what I can from your labor and you're replaceable, you're only money,
Mhm.
etc. That maybe worked, quote unquote, for a while, but one, the new generation, forget it. They will not stick around.
No.
And you could say, oh, this generation's so entitled. And maybe there is some of that. We've also maybe enabled some fragility, but every older generation thinks the younger generation is entitled.
Yeah.
And I think that this generation, the light, the medicine of this next generation is that they really are going to advocate for work life balance. And I think we need that. The 40-hour work week was designed around really the sort of patriarchal thing of when the man stays home and the woman stays at home and does all the other things. And now both parents are working, not to mention single parents. Like, it's really hard to have two parents in 40-hour 9 to 5 jobs and be able to do all the doctor's appointments and the soccer
Mhm.
games and the pick up and drop off and classroom volunteer and bake sales and
Yeah.
theater
Field
shows and
trips
all
and yeah,
this
everything.
just crazy. It's just not sustainable.
No. And that's if you're lucky, if it's a 40-hour work week, where so
Right.
many people, 50,
60.
55 hours are the norm, 60.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
And
you're exactly right. And with that, though, I think we've talked so far about how we as leaders ourselves can regulate, we can use these somatic tools, we can do these things. How does the situation change a little bit, or what do we do when we are calm and we have regulated what we need to and we are okay, but then when we look around the room, we notice that others are not. The other people on our team are not. How do we, I'd say respectfully, because I know sometimes there are lines and sometimes people don't want to share, but how do we respectfully engage and help them when we notice that their nervous system is chaotic and in panic?
yeah, I think again, if you can start with yourself and start with an anchor and start with your own congruent system. And I think it depends to use your own intuition and gut. Does this person need a one on one conversation? Is it a team conversation? You have to develop your own almost therapeutic skills here, like this effective communication strategy, and really also assessing how people need feedback. Like some people really need that strengths based first feedback. Hey, I'm really seeing you specifically do this thing well. And here's the thing that I'm noticing that I think is maybe a bit of a struggle or an area of growth. But some people really find that style to be manipulative. And I was coaching leaders to do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. My son, he's 15 and he's raised by a therapist, poor thing. But I hate it when you do that, mom. Can you just tell me the feedback? And I've actually learned that a lot of people on the autism spectrum
Hmm.
and some neurodivergent folks in other ways really just want the direct feedback. So it's actually really good to assess how your team and individual members like to receive feedback. But generally speaking, hey, I know we're all doing the best we can, like starting with some strengths based and then I'm just naming that there's a lot of tension. It feels like there's a lot of dysregulation. It feels like there's a lot of anxiety in the room. And I say this all the time, I'm holding multiple things. I'm holding that your humanity and your work life balance matter here. And we also have to hit some numbers. We also are a business, or we also have to take care of the things that we are here to do from a work perspective. What do we need to do in order to do that? And there's also such a thing as this might not just be a match. If people are
Yeah.
doing the best they can and they're really not doing what they need to do to show up to work and regulate, then we're at a choice point.
Yeah, Erica, you made me think of a lot of different things with that one. And I think it is a lot of things to unpack. I think to your point, we focus so much here on leadership style, building a healthy culture, making sure people are respected, included, empathize with all of these things. But there are times where people just aren't fits. And the one thing that we can do is look within our organization to see if there is a place they are a fit for before you just go and separate.
Right.
Because the amount of people, not to generalize, but you may have somebody who's a major introvert. Maybe they're just great on a computer. They're a great coder. They don't want to really deal with people, and you go put them in a people leader role, and that's not really setting them up for success. So they're not going to be
Totally.
successful.
Yep.
We should analyze and reflect on that. But the other two things I think of with everything that you said is one, how important trust is, because you can say that in front of the room and say, hey, here's what I'm feeling. I feel this anxiety in the room. And if you don't have that trust built with the team, everybody's going to go, it's fine. Anybody who
Yep.
has kids, and I mean, mine are young, so I go based off stereotypes, but teenagers and everybody, when you go talk to them, how's your day? It was fine. They're just going to
Yep.
give you the base answer. So I think trust is hugely important. And the other thing it made me think of is that it's so important to be true to your leadership style at its core, but understand that everybody is different and how you interact with everybody with that style is different. And it made
Right.
me think of an example I had back when I worked in our manufacturing plant in Pennsylvania. I had somebody who worked for me, and I'm a very much cool, calm, collected. If I'm going to give you feedback, it's going to be in this tone. I'm not going to yell at you. I'm not going to make you feel bad, but I will give you feedback so you know what you need to grow with and grow on. And he's, hey, I played sports my whole life. If I'm not doing something, you need to tell me I suck. That's all I want. And I'm like, I'm not going to tell you suck at something, but I'll be more straightforward and blunt with that. But then I had another person, same age, different upbringing, different everything, and they liked my other style where it was more, hey, just like you said, here are some things that I am seeing that you do. Please continue to do those things. And here are some of your opportunity areas. And I never changed who I was at my core as a
Right.
leader, which you shouldn't. But there are so many leaders today that are like, especially, and I'll generalize again, a lot of the older, more gruff leaders that are like, this is who I am, take it or leave it. That's not going to fly anymore.
Nope. And flexibility, that is a skill that I think both leaders and this upcoming generation, that's the biggest asset you're going to have because
Mhm.
most likely the jobs that are going to be here in 20 years don't exist yet. So flexibility and adaptability and being able to, yes, know who you are, but there is such a thing as rigidity and not looking at your own not so pretty stuff.
Yeah.
And my guess is that if you have a leadership style that is power over, dominance, gruff, take it, yeah, this is just who I am, blah, 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 you probably also have some shadow, some wound, some
Mhm.
trauma. Like we become that overpowering leader, likely because we were once overpowered
Yeah.
and we didn't like that. And so the answer and the trauma adaptation was I'm never going to be the victim again. I'm going to pop into the perpetrator role, the bully role, so that I maintain power. But you are actually quite trapped in that as well. There's no reciprocity, there's no trust, there's no joy, there's
Mhm.
no like ability for you to just be human.
Yeah.
And people don't like you. People don't like you and they don't respect you. They
No.
fear you. They fear you and they're walking on eggshells and they're counting their days until they can find a different job.
And fear is not respect. And people just normalize this trauma and view it as success when it's not. Because the thought process that I see a lot is, yeah, I didn't like it when I was there, but look where I am now and look who I am now. So it must have worked, and I'm just going to do this again. That is not.
No,
That is not because you are drawing lines in places that they do not connect and you're forcing them to connect. That's not how it
totally.
works.
Totally. That also reminds me, like, I think we conflate rigidity with certainty. I think our brains, our survival brains, love certainty. That black and white, like it's this way or the highway, or it's my way or no. Like there's a part of us that's, ooh, I like that because if I get to be right, the other people get to be wrong. And if I'm good, they're bad. And our survival brains are really organized around good, bad, safe, not safe. No. But our more evolved part of our brains, and actually, when we are more healed and more congruent and more integrated, we have a much larger capacity for nuance, for life being messy, for there to be good and bad, multiple truths at the same time. And I think that old style of leadership is really organized around self protection, self
Mhm.
preservation. And it just tells me that there's unhealed stuff
Yeah.
underneath that.
For sure. And I think that's a benefit of the new generation coming is they're forcing this new focus where honestly it probably needed to be in the past, but at
Right.
least it's getting the attention it needs now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I've enjoyed everything so far. Before we sign off, is there anything, any final thoughts that you want to share with everybody?
I think just to know, like, even if people can't put words to it, they're tracking your facial expressions. Our bodies are tracking other people's bodies. So even if you're performing nice in the words and you're saying all the things that you read in the Brene Brown book, you're saying all the right words, but it's incongruent and there's really just rage underneath them and fear. Like your body is communicating to other people's bodies, even if they don't feel it consciously or whatever, they know people have bullshit detectors
Yep.
and you're going to have to do some deeper work more than just reading the book, more than just learning the words. It's going to have to be more of a bottom up process.
I love that. Your mouth can't hide what your body's telling everybody.
Yeah, totally. And just for a little self promotion, I think my book is a good place to start. It's packed full of nervous system regulation tools, talks a lot about shadow work and the process of really looking at this from a bottom up standpoint, not just a top down. And that's called Always Enough, Never Done. And you can find it on my website or you can find it on Amazon as well. but I do think it walks people through what that might look like.
Great. You heard it here. Just to remind everybody, it was Erica Bonham. Go check out her book, and I'll make sure that I have all the links for her book and everything else on the YouTube page and in the description of the podcast and in the postings that we make. You can like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast, found on all the podcast platforms, to my Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Leading Quarters. And you can email me with any questions or ideas you may have for future episodes, or if you're interested in being on the show as well, at leadingquarters@gmail.com. But Erica, I have truly appreciated everything that you've brought here. It's a different way to think of things. I think getting to more of the neuroscience, nervous system, soft skills side of things is so important today. And it's something that I think, even though it's in our face still today, we're not fully embracing it. And so I think everything that you've brought here today is a great start for a lot of people to jump on in. And then hopefully that gets their appetite started enough to then jump into your book and read more about it. So thank
Yeah,
you.
and I'd be happy to come and do a training or speak to your teams. I love coaching leaders on this work, so stay in
Great.
touch with me for sure.
Definitely will. I appreciate everything
Yeah.
you brought today.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate it.